Hi, and welcome to Two Wheels Better from the offices of Motorcycle News in Kettering. Motorcycle News, the world's number one, so they say, and it must be number one at something because 140,000 people every week buy it. We're here to find out just what makes Motorcycle News tick, so follow me and we'll find out just what's what. Adam, the world's number one at what?
Well, as we say on the front, the world's number one is because we are the biggest selling motorcycle publication in the world. But also we've got the prestige and authority. It means that actually we are the number one when it comes to things like the Japanese factories, Italian, all the motorcycle factories around the world look at Motorcycle News as setting the standards, really.
Yeah, they're all always happy to quote it, aren't they, Motorcycle News, as an authority. The Brits are represented by MCN, and this must be of great satisfaction to you.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we are a British-based publication. Everything we write is for our readers who are 99% British. But it is nice to know that, you know, we have got the power and influence that we can really make a difference in the motorcycle industry.
Adam, can I ask you, the role of the editor today, especially of Motorcycle News, a big paper like this, is it really a sort of it's not a hands-on, but it's not exactly hands-off, is it? Are you more of a man manager, a business manager, or how does it fit in?
Well, I mean, what we've got here editorially, when we've got a full team, we've got 32 staff, all split up into various teams, and there's no way I can go and read through every single word that's in the paper. That's why I have people like sub-editors and deputy editor. Basically what I do is I get involved with the initial part of the paper, with the planning process, what's going to go in the next few issues, managing how much space each of the stories are going to get, and also right at the end I check the pages off before they go to make sure that there's nothing wrong with them, make sure that it's the style and tone. But, you know, mainly my real job is motivating the staff here, looking after the team. They're the people that actually write the stories, they're the people that do the designs and the photography, and planning long term, you know, deciding what Motorcycle News is going to do in the future, deciding what our stance is on various topics, and it's great fun.
Adam, before I go and see the reporters out there and see what they're up to, can we have a look at your archives, if that's not too personal a question?
Yeah, let's go and have a look.
Well, we're down in the archive room now, where all the old records are kept and photographs and God knows what else. Just what have we got here, Adam?
Well, we've basically got the world's biggest archive of motorcycling, mainly photographs going back right to the dawn of motorcycling, magazines, periodicals of the time, right up to the current day, and things like handbooks and brochures and manuals on any bike you could just about name, really.
So you got the Motorcycle News obviously going back to the beginning, and
yeah.
Where do we find those?
Right, well, I find the first ever edition of MCN. It's something top secret we've never seen before.
And do you have to have a licence to drive these?
Bike licence suffices. Right, back in... These are the first ever editions of MCN. What we've actually got is the issue before the first issue.
Let's just have a look at that. What's that front page there then?
These are all... This is a dummy. So this was how Motorcycle News actually started, with that's the space where the front page story was going to go.
Very conservative title at the top there.
And then from that you get on to the first dummy, which had some stories in to see how the first edition of Motorcycle News could look.
So this would have been something that they would have knocked together, really. The copy makes sense, but it was just a design job.
Yeah, and that's what they'd take around to advertisers to sell them things like this. Oh. And that, of course, a week later was followed by the very first edition of MCN, Jeff Duke Suspended. So that's Wednesday, 30th November, 1955. The MCN was produced at Fleet Street in London then, but 2 years later it moved up here to Kettering. Every single edition of MCN up to the current day is kept in bound volumes. We've got several sets of them as well, so this is a working set, which I'm allowed to pour through it with my grubby fingers, but there are brand new ones down the end as well, which we just keep for posterity. The real beauty of the archive is we've got bound volumes of virtually every motorcycle magazine ever back to 1903, but the beauty is the actual original photographs themselves, most of which are actually older than you.
Thanks, Adam. You mean that's sort of what, 1960, something like that?
No, back to 1903, 1904, that's what we got pictures to.
You've already told me it's everything's stored alphabetically, but we thought we'd pick on Triumph. Just how far back does Triumph go?
Okay, let's have a look. Right,
This is pre-595, this, isn't it?
yeah, just about. Right, Triumph Veteran and Vintage. Let's have a look. We've got hundreds and hundreds of pictures of Triumphs, twins, all sorts, everything.
It must be a worry. If these are the originals, what happened? They're getting a bit crinkly and a bit fragile, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. We're considering putting them all onto CD-ROM, moving into the digital age, but it's going to be a long time to do, and we've already got copies of most of these anyway.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it's a highly valuable asset, and it's quite a treasure, and I bet people from around the world are after these, aren't they?
Yes, we used these pictures are used in books, all sorts of publications, magazines from all over the world. They all know, anyone around the world who's into classic bike publishing knows that MCN's the place to come for all their old pictures.
Well, on that commercial, we'll end that. I have Rob MacDonald with me, he's Deputy Editor. Rob, if Adam's the editor, what does the Deputy Editor do?
Well, Adam's role is more strategic. He looks after the sort of overall policy of the newspaper, goes out dealing with the industry, making sure that MCN's name is advertised properly and widely. My job is a more day-to-day one of making sure the newspaper comes out every Wednesday morning, basically. So I look after basically all the copy that we have in the paper, the design, the production, etc., with the help of a very talented team, of course.
How does it all work? Is there a start day?
Well, production of motorcycle news is basically a 7-day process. It never stops, and we come out 52 weeks of the year, so it's a 365-day process. At any one day, we're working on one particular page of motorcycle news, whether it be this weekend, for example. We've got reporters away in Japan and in Italy covering the Grand Prix and World Superbikes, down to this morning, which is our actual press day, when we have to finish everything off and get the newspaper onto the printing press. But even today, there are people working on next week's issue rather than this week's issue, and that process carries on throughout the 7 days until we start all over again next Monday.
So a completely rolling process. I bet one day blurs into the other. How do you keep track of all this?
Well, life seems to go very quickly, actually, when you're working on it, especially during the summer when you've got a lot of big sport events. But to keep track of the whole process, obviously you have to have some decent planning. You can't just go along ad lib, otherwise you'd end up on Monday with great big holes and you'd miss the printing press, which is something MCN's never done in its 41-year history.
Well, I'm now sitting with Andy Calton. He's the chief sub, and he's going to tell me what he does to the stories. Doesn't sound very good, that, does it? But well, what do you do to the stories, Andy?
Well, first of all, check through the stories to make sure that we've got the right angle that we're looking at, that it's written in an exciting way, it's going to impress the readers, and that it makes sense, that it's factually correct, and there's no spelling mistakes or literals. The next job really then is to do a headline for the story, and then it goes to our team of designers who design the page. From that point, we then have to sort of look at it again and make it fit the page, make sure the headline fits the page as well correctly, and that it reflects the story.
Is there any interrelation between yourself and the guy who's written the editorial copy?
Oh yeah, if I've got any queries at all, or there's something I don't understand, or if there's something missing, then obviously I'll go back to the reporter who's written it and have a chat with them. I mean, on this story that we're looking at here, we're actually building in quotes to this all the time, and it's actually changed the story a little bit. So I'm going to have a chat with him in a minute, and we'll go through this again and just slightly re-nose it.
Do you get any arguments then if someone says, "What are you doing to my story?"
Yeah, good-natured kind of arguments. A reporter might have written it in a certain way, and I might think that perhaps we need to look at it in a different way, and therefore rewrite the first few parts or something. And there's sometimes a bit of friendly banter about that, but nothing too heated.
And you win in the end, do you?
Normally, not always.
Mark, can I just interrupt a second? Mark Potter, ace road tester. That is you, I've got the right one.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Apparently.
Mark, what's going on at the moment? I see that copy from Andy Ibbott on there.
Yeah, this is copy Andy's written over the weekend.
Over the weekend? Overtime?
Yeah, that doesn't exist, unfortunately. Commitment to the job. So I'm just checking it through for accuracy before it goes over to production desk and makes it to the paper.
Motorcycle News, famous for its road tests. How do you do it all? I mean, I don't suppose you have to go scrounging bikes, do you? You sort of bikes thrown at you?
Not necessarily thrown at us. I mean, sometimes we have difficulty finding older bikes, but I mean, we normally get first ride on the new bikes, which is what we're trying to do all the time. Get scoop rides as often as possible and beat the other magazines to the first rides. We're constantly striving to come up with fresh ideas, new angles on testing bikes, and if there's no new bike, then we try and create a top road test with something new and maybe put it in a shootout against its rival, something like that. It's quite a long process planning it, but get there in the end. We try to get at least 500 miles on each test bike. Basically, the more miles you do, the easier it is to write, and the more comprehensive your test. So 500 miles is really the minimum we strive for. Often you're just sort of picking hairs between bikes, and it's only evident faults on bikes when you jump from one to the other. But I mean, normally we store it in our heads which bikes are good and why they're good, and you can normally feel, once you've ridden enough, you can feel the differences between them straight away. It's just the experience of riding, really.
Next week we're out with the magazine doing wheelies, standing quarter miles and speed tests, and of course those all-important figures that you want to know about when you're going to buy your new bike. That's next week here, exclusively on Two Wheels Better. After the break, more with Paul and the police.
So continuing with the police and the motorcycle, I'm in the middle of a field here, in the middle of nowhere. It's freezing cold. What's this got to do with police motorcycles? Well, if you think they lead a fairly varied life, you really ain't seen nothing yet. These are the boys that have the most fun. This is the off-road section. This is Sergeant Mike McCulloch from Greater Manchester's off-road section. You must have the best job in the world.
It's often rumoured as such, but it does have its disadvantages, as the scar on my nose will tell you.
What's that from?
Well, I had a slight tumble, but the visor snapped, and
Oh, dearie me.
these things happen.
Great fun. You don't look anything like a policeman to me. Well, I mean, what's this? KTM, this?
This is a KTM 620 EGS. It's a very powerful machine, superb suspension, and that's not so we can have maximum fun. That is affords maximum protection to the officers themselves.
Yeah.
They hit a bump, it's going to take it.
Yeah.
You have a small bike, hit a bump, you're coming off.
Right. So I mean, I've never seen an off-road policeman before. So what do you use these for? Off-road pursuits and things like that? Or?
Can happen that way. We try and avoid those as much as we can. What we do with this area, you can see here, very large area. It has an awful lot of problems. They should be for the public enjoyment, but if lads come on motorcycles and rope all over this place with no regard for safety, what happens? We can have an accident. Somebody gets injured, animals get killed. We've got to come here to try and stop this. Yeah. Unfortunately, also, a lot of stolen bikes come here, and you can just have a look over there, you'll see a burnt-out wreck. Yeah. And that's someone's pride of joy. 2 days, nothing's left.
Right, amazing. So, I mean, we've seen the training that a normal police patrol motorcyclist would have, but, I mean, you must be quite a bit more intensive than that.
Yeah, what we do, we select from the 50 motorcyclists that you've already spoken to, and we select officers who've got skills in this area. We then train them to ACU gold standard. We bring an in-house professional, A.D. Smith, I'm sure some of your viewers may know him, yeah. He's come down and taught us some of the techniques that we need to know for our safety, and this means that we're giving maximum possible safety to the officers.
Yeah. And you wear, I mean, you don't look like a bobby, as I keep saying. I mean, you've got the Alpine Stars boots and dirty old jacket. And
well, the jacket's got a lot of padding in it.
Yeah.
This gives me safety. The boots are the best quality boots that we can get. We have leathers with padding in the knees. Yeah. We've got back braces on. Yeah. You name it. We've got quality helmets. We wear all this equipment, so that's the safety element.
Something I've got to ask you, does anybody ever phone up and say, there's some nutters blasting up and down the field on field bikes and it's you?
It can happen, yes. It can sometimes we do generate our own complaint, but when the operator tells them it's actually the police off-road unit, that's exactly what they're paying for. That's what they want to see. And our presence does deter motorcycles. If we weren't here now, I can guarantee there'd be 1 or 2 bikes on this area right now.
Mike, you look like you really enjoyed that. You were having a ball out there.
Well, there is a good side to it, but there's a serious side to it, and that's we've got to the safety of these people around here. We've got to make sure this place is safe, and that's it. We've got a lot of stolen motorcycles, we've got a lot of work on our plate, so we keep the skills up, means we're going to be safe.
Excellent, great fun. Well, there you are. Next time you're driving down and you look in your rearview mirror and you see Equilop in your rearview mirror, just stop and think about all the technology, all the training and all the manpower that's there behind you. This hopefully has given you a little bit of food for thought. Anyway, I wish I brought my gear. Well, I've left the off-road lads doing their stuff. I didn't have my gear, so they sent me back to base. And back at base, I'm joined with 3 of the lads off the bike wing. Now, Steve and Chris, we were out with you when we did the escorting the wide load. I mean, that must be just one of, I don't know, umpteen different tasks that you have to do. I mean, is there such a thing as a typical day for you?
No, there's never a typical day. Every day is totally different. That's why I enjoy this type of police work. The main one for peak hours are in the morning and afternoons, where we assist motorists getting to work and from work, and assist the divisions, because on a bike we're manoeuvrable and we can get through if there's a build-up of traffic, and generally dealing with accidents and any other emergency.
I was riding into Bolton one night. It was 10:30 p.m. I finished at 11. It was dark, and in front of me on a 30 mile an hour speed zone, this car was pulling away from me. I looked down at the speedometer and it was saying 55 and increasing. So then I'll have a word with this car in front. It could be a drunk driver, it could be a stolen vehicle. So I put my blue lights on, I put my sirens on, and I eventually pulled it on the main road. I was sat on my bike in this position, and I clicked my helmet up, and the driver of the car got out, walked back towards me. I kicked the side stand out, and all the way down I went to the floor. And it was at that moment I realised I'd put the side stand straight down a grid. And I had 1/4 of a ton weight lying on my left thigh at that moment. And I looked up from the floor, and to find this motorist bent double, crying, laughing. And luckily for me, another motorist stopped. When they both stopped laughing, I said, "Will you get it off me?" They both pulled the machine up, and I got back on the bike, cool, calm and collective, with a big red face. And I said, "I was going to chuck you off for speeding, but you can go as fast as you want now, just don't tell anybody."
You lads go out on the police bikes when it's, doesn't matter what the weather is. I mean, what would keep you off the road? Obviously snow, but I mean, it doesn't matter if it's throwing it down and thunder and lightning, you still get sent out.
It's got to be severe weather conditions, such as really, really high gale winds or frost, and the road hasn't been treated. If the roads have been treated, then the clear will go out.
Paul and I have been talking about securities on bikes. It's a very, very important subject, and not to be taken lightly. What do you do, Paul, when you're when you're riding these exotic machines that I don't get the chance to ride?
Well, I've had a word about that. I'll sort that out. But the thing is, you see, somebody lends me a bike for the weekend, a £10,000, £11,000 bike sometimes, and I've got to look after that bike, and I've got to take it back in one piece. But the operative word being, I've got to take it back. I've got to keep hold of it, and it's difficult to keep hold of a top-class bike.
True, right, yeah.
Right. Now, I mean, there's all sorts. I know there's chains for this, padlocks for that, disc locks for this, alarms for this, that and the other, but it seems to me it's an absolute minefield, and it seems you can spend as much or as little as you want. Now, I mean, look at these, you see. A disc lock, there we go, 20 quid, 40 quid, I mean, what, is any of them going to stop anybody picking my bike up and throwing it in a van? I don't
Definitely
think it's
not, mate.
a lot of good, really.
No, they just pick them up and throw them in the back of a van. So, if you were going to buy a disc lock because you like the idea and the convenience of putting the disc lock in your pocket or under the seat and being able to carry it, really you might as well buy a £16 disc lock, because it stops the wheels rotating, and that is all they do.
And it still makes you fall off if you forget to take it off.
If you forget to take it off, and off you set, you fall off. And
right.
You're stupid in front of all your mates.
Quick route to a really good stoppie.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
So really, the best move is to lock your bike to something with an ideal lock and chain.
And buy a Rottweiler.
Well, if you put that by the side of it, and if you have an alarm on it, the alarm wakes the Rottweiler up and he bites the leg of the guy who's trying to nick your bike.
Smashing, I like that, that's good.
If you're going to consider locking chains, there's all sorts. Coil locks, lightweight little locks and chains, the big bruisers. These are the boys. These are the ones at various length. I mean, that's a little bit impractical, but that'd be ideal for in a garage locking 3 or 4 bikes up.
Right.
You put these babies the right length for your situation.
But I mean, is that not going to be? That's a metal chain. I mean, a pair of bolt croppers, surely.
No.
Go through that.
No. Earlier on today, with these things, which I carry in my pocket everywhere I go.
Right. Well, I've seen your trousers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are bolt croppers of the largest type, and those have cut a lock and chain with ease. In fact, this baby behind you.
This one.
Easy.
Right.
My body weight on the ground, inside the jaws of the croppers, snap. Seconds.
Right.
Because it looks like the big boy.
It
But
does
this
look exactly the same as
the difference
120
being
pounds.
materials. That's all it is. That's nitro hardened, and the idea is they freeze it hard rather than heat temper it. So when these guys come along with croppers which snap things, they don't cut them like scissors. When they try and snap the metal, it won't, because it's not brittle at all. It's very, very hard, fully hardened. All it does really is, as you can probably see from the croppers, is dent the jaws.
Right.
They get frustrated, they go and look for the bike that's only got a disc lock on and throw that in the back of the van.
Right. So I can lock my bike up with a padlock, and that might stop somebody wheeling it off. But I mean, if somebody comes and picks it up, it can be chained up, and they can pick it up and throw it in a van. Now I'm not going to hear them, so obviously there's alarms.
That's the answer.
Right.
Noise.
Audible alarms. Lots of noise. As much noise as we can make, really, basically.
Well, there's not many quiet alarms.
No, that's true.
So a noisy alarm, as you've said. Immobilising system on it as well, if possible. Could cost you a few quid. Could cost you £60–70 for a basic one, or a real good system one, which you may get insurance discount, which everybody wants, because your insurance is a high cost. Bit of insurance discount never goes amiss.
Right.
You're talking £200–300. But on a modern motorcycle, as you said, £10–11,000, £200 is nothing.
Well worth it, yeah.
And what a little important point being is, everybody's got excess on their insurance policy. Might be £200–300. So if you can avoid having your bike stolen by buying something at 150 quid, a lock and chain, you've avoided the chance of having the disappointment of losing it and paying £250 out for your excess.
Right. Sounds good
to
me.
Get your money out. Let's get one bought.
Well, it's in my top box actually. I'll just go and get. I don't think I've locked it. I'll be back in a minute.
Hey, Paul, don't forget, lock it, don't lose it. Shh. Oh, and by the way, alarms. We'll touch on the subject of alarms in a few weeks.